Even if a teacher can teach anything, they can't teach one thing, the value of life. Only a doctor can do that. We know the love doctors have towards our life and the noble profession. New patients, new diseases, new problems and new experiences every day. We know how hard they train and how much they study in order to practice the noble profession. Starting from 4 years to even 15 years in colleges and universities, we know how hard the doctors have to devote their time to learning. But, what if I told you that there is a person who has studied just till 3rd standard, but is able to perform surgeries properly? And what if I told you that someone who doesn't even know to write and speak proper English writes prescriptions in English and has given to patients? More importantly, what if I said you that during surgeries, the doctor is unconscious while performing them? And after the surgery, he questions himself, was it me who did this surgery? Welcome to the life of one such mysterious ghost doctor. And without further ado, let's begin the video. Our story begins on 18th of October 1921 in Campinas in Minas Gerais, Brazil, where a beautiful boy was born to poor parents whose names are unknown. And he was christened the name José Pedro de Freitas. But, he was more popular with his other name, namely Zé Arigo. He has another nickname as well. The surgeon of the rusty knife. Let's see why while we go deeper into the video. As I had said, he was born to poor parents and could not afford to even 3 proper meals a day. And due to low incomes, Zé Arigo was not able to get himself educated. And he was a 3rd-class dropout. And after crossing 3rd class, he started working and shouldering the responsibility and burden of earning bread for his family upon himself. And for this, he worked as a daily wage worker without any stable income and without job security. And at the age of 14, he finally got a stable job. And that was in a gold mine. And he worked for several years in this gold mine. Even if poverty was tormenting his house, Zé Arigo had to work from his fingers to the bone to make a living. Still, without regret, Zé Arigo worked hard to make some money. And he fought tooth and nail till his age of 29. But after this, fate had other plans for him. You might have heard the saying, it is better to be born lucky than to be born rich. And Zé Arigo was a classic example for this. But, Zé Arigo never knew that. Since 1950, Zé Arigo faced serious headaches and was hallucinating often. Strange voices echoed in his ears regularly. And Zé Arigo used to feel bad why headaches come only for him and not other people. These headaches troubled Zé Arigo for a month and he was annoyed of this. So, he saved money little by little and finally consulted a doctor. But, to his amusement, the doctor told him that he was perfectly alright and had no such issue. But, Zé Arigo knew something was wrong. And Zé Arigo spent the next few years being used to this and adapting himself to the headaches and other issues. In between, he used to faint often and lie unconscious. Similarly, one day Zé Arigo was unconscious as usual. As he regained consciousness and was about to stand up, he was able to see someone wearing a white coat approaching him. After seeing this sight, he again became unconscious and fainted at the same place. In his ears echoed an eerie voice that said, "I am Dr. Fritz. And I will be controlling and dominating your body from today." It was just like the concept of a soul entering another body. After hearing this, Zé Arigo was horrified and shouted the word "no" loudly. But, nobody outside was able to hear his voice. Because his body was under the control of Dr. Fritz. and Arigo himself mentioned this incident in his autobiography. And after this day, things became normal and Arigo continued with his work. Until one day. On that day, one of Arigo's female neighbors was speaking some random stuff with him. Meanwhile in the conversation, she told Arigo that she had a tumor in her stomach and added that she had roamed the entire city and neighboring cities searching for a doctor who could cure her tumor. But, it was unsuccessful. And she had only 2 months left for her death. Suddenly, Arigo did something nobody could expect. He grabbed an old rusty knife and stabbed the stomach of his neighbor with full aggression. His neighbor became silent. And everyone around thought that Arigo had murdered his neighbor. But, Arigo calmly said his neighbor that she was alright and her tumor had been cured. No one including his neighbor was ready to believe him. But as everyone took a closer look, Arigo had stabbed the woman in the same way as a professional surgeon would do. And it was as precise. But Arigo was an uneducated student who used an old rusty knife instead of surgical blades. And while stabbing the neighbor, there was no blood loss and there were no scars or bruises. And as I said, his neighbor became silent and didn't shout. And that implies that his neighbor never felt any pain. After removing this tumor, surrounding people were fascinated. And when they went to ask him the reason for his sudden expertise in surgery, he opened up the fact that he was unconscious and the surgery was performed by the spirit of Dr. Fritz, who was now controlling his body. After the removal of this tumor, his neighbor who was treated had narrated the whole story of how her tumor was removed to her friends and relatives. And after this, people crowded around his house for treatment. And Arigo had been performing surgeries and operations free of cost. They included eye surgeries, visceral surgeries, dental surgeries etc., which all earned popularity in his town. But the patients whom he has treated had said that he looked very dull while performing the surgery, which is because he was unconscious. But, after the surgery, he used to regain consciousness and question himself. Was it me who did this surgery? And after performing surgeries free of cost, he became extremely popular in the neighborhood. But, not on a large scale. Until one incident that occurred and made him popular worldwide. What happened was that, the senator of Brazil, which is a high post offered in the government, a cancerous tumor was developing in his abdomen. And the person who treated the senator was none other than Arigo. And after a successful surgery, Arigo became the extremely famous all through the globe. But we all know that one who has millions of fans will have thousands of critics. Similarly, there were people who criticized Arigo too. The reason was that, he never studied medicine. To be frank, he hadn't even completed his elementary education. And the reason he is successful is due to placebo effect. For those who don't know what placebo effect is, it is a scientific form of the saying, you are what you think you are. For example, if you believe strongly you are ill, you will eventually turn ill. Similarly, if you go to a doctor saying you have stomach pain, but the doctor gives you a headache tablet and you think it is a stomachache tablet and eat it without knowing it is a headache tablet, you will turn alright as you believed that the tablet could cure your stomach pain. This confidence would help you cure your pain. And people stated this was how the patients had recovered as they believed in Arigo. Therefore, several people filed cases against Arigo stating that he uses only placebo effect and is not a certified surgeon. After cases heaped one on top of another, the Brazilian government had arrested Arigo and put him behind bars and was sentenced to be there for 15 months. But, a monkey's business won't change if it changes the tree it is on. Similarly, Arigo started treating patients in the prison too. And he performed surgeries in the jail as well. But, with the same old rusty knife. Still he faced several critics. One of whom was magician and skeptic James Randi. He claimed that Arigo used a technique which was used by magicians. Just like how magicians hide a bird inside their sleeve and bring it out with swift movement of the hands, James Randi claimed that Arigo too uses the same trick to create an impression like he has removed tumors from the body, but actually hasn't. And James Randi even performed this trick in front of a huge gathering to prove then that Arigo was lying. Whatever happened, people still trusted Arigo. But, unfortunately, Arigo had to be imprisoned again for 9 months in 1962. And after he started treating prisoners, even the Brazilian government themselves started to believe Arigo's words. They accepted that the spirit of Dr. Fritz was controlling him. Therefore, the Brazilian president himself ordered to cancel the sentence of imprisonment imposed on him in few months of his imprisonment. After treating thousands of people, in October 1969, before 3 months of his death, Arigo said to the public that he would die on January 11, 1971 in a bike accident. And he literally predicted his own death as he died on the same date he said, and in a bike accident. And that was when everyone started to believe that a ghost was really controlling him. Now viewers, tell me in the comments if he was genuinely controlled by a spirit or a ghost. Or was he using placebo effect? The comments section is open to discuss. We'll see you in another video. Till then, goodbye.